So in an earlier video, I showcased my Honda build, and I got a lot of traction on this page, so I figured I'd come back today and show you guys the parts you can expect to buy and what would make a good combo both for a budget setup and for a big baller setup. Okay, so we're going to start with a budget setup. This setup's going to cost somewhere around $1,900 for all your turbo bits, and then you're going to need to pay extra for a tune. This will net somewhere around 220 wheel horsepower. The most important thing to start with is a manifold. There's a lot of manifolds on eBay that cost anywhere from $60 to $90, and they're the ram's horn style, but they're super cheap and they break super often and they crack and cause a whole bunch of problems. The best one I can recommend here is from Go-autoworks. The guy Greg over there is a great dude. This manifold is a lifetime warranty, so if it cracks, if it breaks, you can always send it back and get it warranted. It's about 180 bucks, and it's good for the money. It'll flow just fine, well into the 300 or 400 horsepower range. Next is turbo choice. This is a big deal. Depending on what you plan to do. So a lot of the people watching this video are probably going to be looking to do something that's like a street setup. So you don't want to go with like a super big turbo that's going to be laggy or anything. Now, going with a smaller turbo, you do limit your potential horsepower, but you also get something that's going to spool faster and be way more fun. So my build initially used like a T04E, which is exactly what I got here. This is just off of eBay. Mine was an eBay one as well. I never had any problems with it. You can pick this up just for $100. This one's from Max Speeding Rods. They sell turbos that are somewhat decent, but they're still China junk. Injectors are very important, so you can build everything really nice and then put terrible cheap injectors in it, and it'll run terrible. It won't idle at stoplights, things like that. Cheap injectors really are either on or off, so they work really good at full throttle, and everything else is really spotty. It's super hard to dial in on a tune. So I recommend just right out of the gate going with a name brand injector. So I use Fuel Injector Clinic. Their customer service is great. They offer a flow sheet and all the specifications you need to plug into your tune to get it just right. So definitely worth the money. And then these are 1000cc. It's what I'd recommend because if you want to upgrade later from something that makes 220 to something that makes anywhere like just below 400, even on E85, 1000s will do it just fine. Next, I have a conversion harness. This is going to be if you go to a OBD1 ECU, which is what most people will do for a budget setup. They're going to get a Honda, which I'll talk about later, and chip a factory ECU. So you need to go OBD1 for that. So this is just a conversion harness that will swap it from OBD2 to OBD1. In doing that, there are some cheaper ones out there. You can find them on Amazon for $20 or $30, but a lot of the wires are like super thin and like already torn. I know I got one from Amazon and it already had a bunch of wires pulled out from getting it, so I just sent it back. So I would definitely recommend spending the money on this, especially if you're going to stay using like a chipped factory ECU. Honda S300. A lot of people use this one or tune this one specifically. They don't really tune things like Motes or Neptune anymore, or even Chrome. This is pricey. I mean, it's $600 and it's still a piggyback ECU. There are better things you can go to for a little bit more money, but with a budget in mind, this is what 99% of people are going to use. For an intercooler, these are cheap. I mean, 80 bucks is just fine if you're making, anything less than 300 or 400 horsepower. This will keep your charge air temps fine. I used just a small one on mine and didn't seem to have any problem. You're going to need an oil drain and return. It's kind of just something you have to have. So this comes with all the fittings that you're going to need to adapt it over. It's $21. I mean, this is something you can buy cheap, not anything that's really going to matter. It's not really going to leak. As far as getting oil from the block, you're going to need a sandwich plate. Mine was from Glow Shift, and I liked it. It has 4 ports on it, actually, so if you want to do oil temp sensor or, a manual pressure gauge, you can do that also. And this just bolts in where your factory oil filter is, and then your oil filter goes on the back of it. And I had never had a problem with mine leaking or doing anything like that. For wastegates are really important because if you get a wastegate from eBay that's $30 and then it sticks closed, well, you're out of motor. And yeah, they're cheap, but that's a lot of downtime for a car for no reason. So spend the extra money. This one's from Pulsar. Pulsar makes some decent stuff, and this is going to control what boost you make based on like what spring you use and stuff like that. So pretty cheap. Definitely just worth the money to pay a little bit extra for something like this on a budget setup even. A lot of these setups come with these weird 2-bolt flanges that are for like a Gruddy style blow-off valve, and 99% of them leak. This VS Racing blow-off valve comes with the piece to weld onto your charge pipe. I actually just had a local fab guy do it for me. He charged me $20 to do it, and this is just a way better blow-off valve for the money. You do need to open these up when you get them, because the diaphragm that goes around here is usually pinched somewhere in the manufacturing. Both of the ones I've had on both of my cars have done it. So you can just open it up, clean out all the little chips and imperfections, and put it back together, and it works fine. If you're still kind of on the edge about it, these actually use the replacement parts from a tile wastegate or blow-off valve. So you can do that and just rebuild it with all nice parts. You're going to need a fuel pump, and a popular choice for Hondas is actually a Walbro 255. But a 255, I mean, anything over, 250 or 300, or especially when you're running E85, you start to run out of it. And changing fuel pumps is just it's not hard, but it's not exactly what you want to be doing all the time. So just going big and getting a 450 in the first place, it sets you up to go bigger in the future, but also run fine where you're at. And at $170, it's not a bad deal. You do need to buy this from a reputable place and be sure, because there's a lot of fake copies of Walbros out here. So make sure you buy it from somewhere that is very trustworthy. So that's going to conclude about what you would do for a budget setup, and that's good for about 220 wheel. Where you start to run into a problem is the factory connecting rods really can't take too much more without starting to bend and break stuff. If you want to do something a little bit better, something that's going to put you, close to 300 or 400 wheel horsepower, you can actually use this exact same parts list, but grab these no-notch kits from Speed Factory. You're going to have to take your motor apart, and you're going to have to get it bored out at a machine shop. That's about $100. And most of this stuff is all press-in. With this, you don't have to notch the girdle, and you get higher compression. I believe on a D16 Y8, this brings it to 8.8 to 1, which is a lot better, because if you have really low compression, you're going to have a hard time spooling a turbo as they get bigger. So that's what I would do for both a budget and mid-range setup. Your mid-range setup price is going to bring it right to around $2,500 plus the tune, so you can imagine about $3K. And this will put you in the 300 to 400 wheel horsepower range. And that's a lot for anybody that hasn't driven one. I mean, these cars are super light. They're super fast. I mean, when I was on 220 wheel horsepower, I was running, at the drag strip with a buddy with a Focus RS, and it was neck and neck. So just to give you an idea. Going up into the 300 range, you do have to start worrying about traction a little bit and higher. LSDs are kind of recommended, but they are expensive, so not everybody does one. But something to keep in mind. Now, if you're looking to build like a real badass D series and you're looking to really go the extra mile and make 400 plus horsepower, which is mostly just going to be a drag racing deal, we're going to go ahead and switch to this set of parts. And we're going to start with this ram horn manifold. This is also a Go-autoworks part. It's built with 304L stainless, and this is also another lifetime warranty one, so you're not going to worry about this cracking or breaking or doing anything like that. The price is high, but it reflects quality. And also, this ram's horn style actually spools turbos a little bit better than the cast manifolds, and it'd be worth the money in this setup. We're going to keep this same rods and pistons, actually, just because on the market, this is the highest compression you can get without, going to a mix-match bag of pistons and stuff. But this is the only long rod on the market that you don't have to notch for. So you could do this and go to maybe a Wiseco piston that's a little bit taller. If you wanted to, you'd have to call them up and do that. But as far as a drop-in upgrade that can handle the power, these are worth it. Turbo choice, we're going to go to a Pulsar 3076. This is a ball bearing turbo, so it's going to spool a little bit faster than a journal bearing. The only difference being that you do need to run an oil restrictor so you do not blow out the seals in this. I have it here with a .63 back housing. That's kind of the sweet spot on a Honda. And then that's probably good for right around 400. If you went to an 82 back housing, .82, you could do more power, but it'd spool quite a bit later. This one's $575. Still a good turbo for the money, and you're going ball bearing. Since you're going to be running like super high amounts of boost to hit that mark, you kind of want to upgrade to something that's a little bit more reliable as a wastegate. So I ran, and I can recommend this Turbo Smart wastegate. It's $250. It's super easy to change. You don't have to unbolt anything. There's actually this collar actually spins off and makes it super easy to make a change on the dyno or whenever you need to. So definitely worth the money there, and the quality is great. I'm still going to continue to recommend the VS Racing blow-off valve. It works. It's not expensive. I mean, I've never had any problems with mine. People who run big turbo LS cars don't have problems with them either. So definitely can recommend that. As far as injectors go, like I said, right around 400 horsepower on E85, we start to run out of the limit of those thousands. If you're going to do it, I can't say go ahead and, go to just a 1500 or something. You might as well just go big and get a 2150. It's a little bit more money that way, but I mean, you're setting yourself up to run whatever you want. If you wanted to do, E85, but then also if you want to switch over to like Ignite 9090, these will do it all. For ECU, I'm going to recommend actually the Link ECU. A lot of people tune these. They stop tuning like Honda and that and go directly to this. The problem that people run into with Honda is that at the end of the day, it's a board that's still piggybacking a ECU that's 25 years old or older, and capacitors and stuff breaks down. So sometimes things don't play nice, or little ghost issues can pop up, and it makes a big problem. And then on top of that, you're kind of limited with what you can do as far as inputs, outputs, stuff like that, because again, you're still using a factory ECU. A lot of people do run Link. It's pretty good. It has a lot of features for the money. Haltech is another one people run. My recommendation for that would be to find a tuner in your area that's reputable, that people like, and maybe just give them a call and say, hey, what ECU do you prefer to tune? What do you want to do? Because the problem I ran into with my Honda was when I was on Honda, all these people would say they tuned Honda, and I dropped my car off, and my car would sit there for 3 months and not get tuned. Or they'd do a really, really bad job tuning it with way too much timing. It was very unsafe, which is what led to me ultimately getting rid of the car. So for sure, find a reputable tuner that people know or recommend, and then see what they want to tune on, so that way you don't run into that issue. You're definitely going to want a bigger intercooler if you're kind of crossing into that high horsepower stuff. Mishimoto makes a nice one, and then so does Speed Factory. Those are more backdoor style intercoolers. You really just got to look at your setup and what you're trying to go. I wouldn't recommend anything with less than a 3 or 4 inch core, and you might have to remove some things like the crash bar to fit these, but still something you would need to do. Upwards, probably 400 to 500 horsepower. This Walbro 525 is going to be the move. I'm not too sure about this website. I think that's genuine, but these like to be ran at lower pressure to keep the volume going up, because as pressure goes up, the volume that it moves actually goes down. But 525 is going to be the move. If you get to a point where you're outrunning a 525, you're going to want to look into like an Aeromotive A1000, which is a pretty big pump, but that's kind of where you're left at, because you don't want to get two cheaper pumps, because you're not going to fit them in the tank with the way the basket's set up. For oil drain and feed, I'd recommend this one from VS Racing. It comes with all really nice and fittings and kind of nice stuff to use. This is the kit I run on my Mustang, actually, and I'm more than happy with it, so I could definitely recommend this. And then you're still going to need to get oil pressure, so I'm still going to recommend the same Glow Shift oil filter adapter. And that's basically it. For this kind of setup, you can expect to be around $4,700 plus a tune. If we figure a tune's $500, you're right at $5,000 plus the price of the car. So for $6,500, I mean, you're really not too bad into a car that makes 400 or 500 horsepower and weighs 2,800 pounds. But that's kind of more of a drag only type of car, because on the street it's not going to spool that great, and it's just going to blow the tires off. You'd also want to look into things like traction bars, LSD, and then definitely stronger axles. But I've seen people use stock axles and be okay by preloading at the drag strip. So either way, this is the setup I would run. You can change it out for whatever you want. So those are the parts I would recommend if you want to build a turbo Honda. You could give this video a like and subscribe, and then if you comment any questions you have, I'll go ahead and answer those. I'm going to leave the video for my Honda build right here on my forehead. It's definitely big enough to fit it. And you guys have a great day.